This video is brought to you by Holocasa. Our tool transforms independent local real estate agents to global real estate agents. Create your own profile for free and get contacted by international investors. Sign up with the link in the description. Hello and welcome everyone to our 131st session of Holocasa. My name is Michael and today I'm talking to Dhruv Agarwala, currently based in Singapore. Dhruv is Chief Executive Officer of REA India, which oversees major real estate platforms such as Housing.com, PropTiger.com, and Makan.com. He has held his role since 2020. In addition, Dhruv has also been the CEO of PropTiger, Housing, and Makan.com since 2017. As a co-founder of PropTiger, Dhruv has been a key figure in the Indian real estate landscape since its inception 2011. Prior to this, he co-founded iTrust Financial Advisors, a leading personal finance advisory firm, and also served as Senior Vice President at GE in India. Dhruv holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and an MS in Material Science and Engineering from Stanford University. Dhruv, it's an honor and a pleasure to have you on the show. Why don't you introduce yourself to our audience?
Thanks, Michael, for having me on the show. I'm very excited to be here and talk about my journey and hopefully help other budding entrepreneurs overall or in the PropTech space to potentially learn from my mistakes, what worked well, what didn't work well. Really delighted to be here. So look, very quickly about me, Michael, I grew up in India, in Calcutta, then went to the US to get my bachelor's degree in material science and engineering at Northwestern University. Post that, I went to Stanford to actually get my PhD in the same subject, but decided to leave with a master's. I didn't see myself in a lab all my life. Moved back to India, worked for a steel fabrication shop for a couple of years, and then started a small iron ore mining business, which I ran for a few years. And then I exited that and I went back to the US to get my MBA from Harvard Business School. And post that, I joined GE in the specialty materials business in the US, doing M&A for them. And then had several sort of operating roles within the GE ecosystem in the US, doing Lean Six Sigma, simplification, and various other things before I relocated back to India with GE to run GE's infrastructure business in India. I did that for about a year, and then I moved over to GE Corporate, where I was essentially leading the One GE initiative, which was basically representing multiple GE companies as a single face. And I was doing that for large public sector enterprises in India and wherever the government was directly buying. So I did that for about a year and then essentially decided to ditch the corporate world to do my first startup, which was called iTrust Financial Advisors. I started that with a classmate of mine from business school. And essentially the idea was to provide the right financial advice to middle-class Indians, and essentially in a market where there was a lot of mistrust, a lot of lack of knowledge and awareness about financial products, bring transparency, bring openness, bring understanding and knowledge. And on the back of that sort of financial planning, sell different financial products, which we believed was the right thing for the consumer based on their financial profile and their financial goals. So in fact, we raised back in 2006 a big Series A or seed round, actually a first round itself was $6 million. And we raised capital from folks like SoftBank China India, from Algebris, which is even till today a leading financial services hedge fund in the UK, and a bunch of marquee angels, which included a few of our professors from Harvard Business School as well. That was a very interesting journey where we did financial plans for almost close to 100,000 people across the country, got a good insight into what their financial profile look like and helped them buy financial products. We realized very quickly that at that point in time, people were not really, just given the young demographic in India, thinking about buying insurance products or retirement products, but were basically looking at what people really look for, essentially getting a home. And they were trying to save up money to put down a down payment on a mortgage and then get a mortgage from a bank and then essentially go out and buy their home. So that was a big financial goal, which we realized was front and center for the average middle-class Indian. So, so real estate became an integral part of our offering in iTrust. But soon we realized that it was getting more and more difficult to scale the business where people were just unwilling to pay for those financial plans. So whatever we had in our mind about what we could charge, people were just not willing to pay. And they saw that as a service which should have ideally been delivered for free. But our model was, no, we charge you for the financial plan, but basically give you products which are the right product for you, but those products may or may not necessarily make a lot of money for us. So there was this sort of inherent contradiction in how we were trying to build the business and what the consumer psyche was. Our belief, honestly, as first-time entrepreneurs, in a way, was that, look, we can change the psyche of consumers and ultimately the consumers will start paying, but very hard to do, we realized very quickly. So we sold our business to Carvey, which is a large financial services conglomerate in India, and then essentially kept the real estate piece of the business with us and built PropTiger around that. And the thesis behind PropTiger was that, again, in a market for real estate, which was full of mistrust, people didn't trust agents. There was a lot of mis-selling going on. There were a lot of fly-by-night developers which were there in India. There was absolutely no regulation. Today, India is more regulated, not to the extent I would like it to be, but there's still some regulation. At that point in time, it was like the Wild West. Anyone could become a developer. You could launch a development, raise money on the back of that, take the money and put it elsewhere. And there was nothing there, like an escrow account where the money needed to go to, which is the case now. And people burned their fingers. So I think it was a very tough market for consumers. And we believed that a real estate brokerage, which could actually work for the consumer, where we would help them buy the right property based on their needs and hold their hand through the entire process. Because given that most people were first-time home buyers, just given how new the growth in India was, the real estate market is still maturing. It's still not fully matured, right? That time it was even more nascent. I think that service was important. So we started PropTiger, which essentially worked with developers to help them market their new developments. And they paid us a percentage of the value of the property to sell. We provided our service to the consumer for free. So they came to proptiger.com, dropped an inquiry, and our salespeople would hold their hand, help them do site visits, do a short list, help them do the paperwork, help them get a mortgage, and essentially close the transaction for them. But our biggest proposition was that, look, we won't sell you property from any developer. We first needed to be convinced about the developer's credentials, about the quality of the property, the development, and then only we would market that. Because there was an inherent question that, look, if the developer is paying us, then how can we do the right thing by the consumer? But we said there was enough product out there from good quality developers who we could market to the consumers. We did make our mistakes, frankly, in terms of developer selection. So we did go wrong in many places where the developers didn't keep to their commitment. And in many cases, we didn't get paid for the brokerage as well, which we earned. But ultimately, as the market has matured over a period of time, I think we've got now developers who run their show in a much more corporate-like manner. There are old corporate houses doing other businesses which have gone into real estate development. There are real estate developers who are now listed players. So a lot of sanity and transparency has emerged in the market since 2011 when we started PropTiger. And then gradually we evolved our model from being an online brokerage to becoming a classifieds platform when we bought Makaan.com and Housing.com. So sorry it took time to answer the question, but I thought it'll really set the ground for further questions, which I'm happy to answer.
Absolutely. Regarding PropTiger, and thank you so much, is it very operational and was it not a challenge to get it going with really doing the due diligence of all the developers and also making sure that you're doing like the proper appraisal of the real estate listings?
Sure. So look, it's always a challenge, Michael. I think that's why I said we did make our share of mistakes, but we did make the effort where others were not even trying to do that, to ascertain the developer's credentials, their track record, what they had delivered, the quality of whatever they had delivered, just the location of the project, the approvals they'd already got or not. Because if you don't get your approvals and launch a project, guess what? You might not get the approvals and all the money then is lost. So stuff like that. Of course, now lots of regulations are there in place to protect against that, but at that time, there wasn't. So we did have a team doing all of that, which was a bit operational intensive. But then again, our philosophy was that in each micro market we worked in, all we needed to do was have one or two developments and not have everything. So the idea wasn't to be a comprehensive platform, but be a platform where we had curated developments, which it was easier to do as opposed to trying to sell everything and then do diligence on hundreds of developments. You start from at least a bit of market knowledge, which is freely available in terms of which developers have got track record, etc., etc., and then start digging deeper. So yes, operationally intensive, but I think really worthwhile in terms of doing that because it allowed us to stick to a core proposition of offering to consumers what we believed was right to them. And then, of course, running a full-blown sales team, which does showings, shortlisting, paperwork around mortgages, etc., that does require operational rigor as well. So yes, it was quite a bit. So it was in that sense a digital business, but at the same time, a very strong offline component as well.
Yeah. You mentioned before that India has been a very nascent market, especially when you started. How has it changed since then? And how can I imagine that also the digital age regarding real estate, maybe in total, in general, away from PropTech, but how can I also see like the development right now? How is it the regulation regarding developers, the regulation regarding agents? Has it improved? Has it become a bit more structured? And then later on, I would like to know also, obviously, regarding the PropTech landscape.
Sure. So look, with regard to the industry as a whole, I think it has come a long way since we started. So as I mentioned earlier, I think the quality of the developers has gone up significantly with many traditional established business houses which were running large industries elsewhere. They've gotten into real estate development. Many of the focused real estate developers have gone ahead and listed themselves on the stock exchange, which obviously brings more scrutiny and brings higher standards of governance. That's improved significantly. We've had something called the Real Estate Regulatory Act come in, I think, if I'm not mistaken, in 2000, which holds the developers accountable for what they commit. So if there is a particular schedule they've committed to deliver the property on, they're held accountable for that. There are certain norms around marketing in terms of when you can start marketing. If you don't have that approval from the authority, you can't start marketing. The claims that you make about the property have to be more transparent. Talk about what's the exact carpet area versus super built up, which also includes your area of the passages, the common area amenities, etc., etc. So be very clear and transparent about that. There's accountability now for the developers to, when they launch a project and they collect money, to put that into an escrow account, a certain percentage, to ensure that money from there goes into the construction of the project, as opposed to in the past when developers would take some of that money and frankly buy more land. So it became you take money from one project to launch another, and you're left with no money then. If things start to go southwards, no money left to construct, which leaves customers with just a piece of paper and no real property. So I think that regulation has come a long way. It also has regulated agents somewhat, but only in the new home space. They don't regulate agents still in the rental space or the resale space. But agents are required to get registered with the authority. Only one state, because in India, real estate is a state subject. So while there is an overarching national guideline, each state has to do its own legislation. So not every state is at par. So one of the states has introduced some level of certification, but it's still very basic. Others don't even have that. So I think still, I would say that from an agent regulation perspective, it is still very early days. I think more regulations are actually welcome. And I think the ambit of the regulation needs to include rentals, resale, and new homes. But look, where it was frankly in 2011 and where we are today, I think we've come a long way. In the industry itself, becoming more transparent, maturing, becoming more professional, and a lot of the fly-by-night operators have left the space. And a lot of trust, actually, there was a massive trust deficit back in 2011, which really worsened as properties did not get delivered as per promise. That trust deficit has reduced significantly as well. So, which leads to the next question around PropTech as well. I think if you look at just the classified space, in India, we saw early adoption of the digital sort of classified space by the jobs industry, so recruitment, matrimony, which is a big thing in India. Elsewhere, you have dating. In India, we had matrimony, which was a very formal process for arranged marriages to take place. So that went from physical classifieds to digital classifieds. Automobile went online significantly. But I think real estate was really a little slow off the block, to be honest. So we found that adoption in our sector was much slower than these other sectors. But I think COVID changed all of that when I think everybody was forced to use the online medium for everything they did just to survive. We realized that there was a bit of a inflection point for our sector as far as PropTech adoption is concerned. So more and more agents became open to using the online channel. More and more developers move their spend on physical advertising and out-of-home advertising to the digital medium. Even consumers who previously would talk to friends or just talk to a neighborhood broker or talk to people who had transacted to find a reliable broker, etc. More and more of them have started using the online medium now to search for property. Still, they do that. It's not that it's gone away completely, but I think many more people have started using the online medium now. So what we find is that there is still a big reliance on brokers, but people do like to come online and do a lot of the shortlisting online. And then they might actually then obviously go offline to visit the property, talk to different multiple agents, et cetera, to finally close the transaction. But I think for a lot of people now, I would say like a significant majority, the search begins online. Of course, it might conclude offline, but it begins online. So I think that we have seen a considerable amount of change as far as how sales and marketing gets done for real estate and how consumers buy residential real estate. There are the other areas as well. When it comes to data analytics platforms coming up, innovation around the construction technology sector, people adopting PropTech there. In the asset management industry, we're seeing new stuff happening on fractionalization of real estate, vacation home rentals, co-living. So lots and lots of different sort of real estate related businesses driven by technology or enabled by technology. So I think between when we started and now, huge sort of change which has taken place.
Makes sense. So such a tool like HelloCasa actually could also make sense for India, or do you think it's not really there? Because I believe like it's a very segmented market and many real estate agents are looking for online presence. Do you think this is a viable option there?
Look, I think it is something could make sense. We've considered it on several occasions to provide a product for agents where they could market themselves. For example, we've just launched a service and we're doing it only as a service. We're not monetizing it, where we pick a real estate agent every month who's really built a solid, sustainable business in the profession of being a real estate agent and chronicle their journey, which talks about how they started, how they grew the business, how they built the business. Also, we made it a little aspirational, which shows that in the course of their journey, in the course of running this business, how they've done well at a personal level, at a professional level, where it's been life-changing for them in terms of their lifestyle, in terms of fulfilling their dreams, ambitions, etc. So I think we're doing that as a service to agents because we believe that it is a market where there is still some trust deficit. And if agents get the right platform to showcase not just their listings, but showcase who they are themselves, I think there is a big opportunity there, both in terms for the agents to grow their business, for the good agents especially, and then for the consumers to find a place where they can actually say, hey, you know what, here are a list of quality agents. So rather than look for a specific property, maybe I find the agent and they may have a list of properties. So I think we keep debating that because we do have a listings business where agents can come and list their properties, where the hero is really the property and not the agent. We do have depth products where agents can showcase themselves a little bit better. But I think what you guys are doing at HelloCasa, I think could be an interesting model to think about, not just in a cross-border context, but even within the Indian context. Because think about it, right? In India, you have close to 30 states, 16 basic languages, and then multiple dialects, and fairly mobile job seekers who are willing to go from one city to the other if the job opportunities are much better. So for them to, let's say, find an agent in another city, let's say someone moving from Delhi to Bangalore who could speak Hindi or who they could just build trust if they come from similar backgrounds or whatever it takes to build that initial trust, I think it could be an interesting product.
Perfect. Where do you see your company going and maybe also in tech space going during the next 3 to 5 years, even also considering AI? We don't know where AI is going, but maybe you have a vision and an idea of where your where you're taking your company?
Sure. So look, I think the next 3 to 5 years is going to be very exciting, Michael. I think to your point, boardrooms in other industries, right? Boardrooms even in our company, in our industry, everyone's thinking about how does AI change the game, especially I think for platforms such as ours, where the fundamental risk is that search behavior changes because of large language models and things like ChatGPT, etc. And what would that mean for our business? I think there are no clear answers at this stage. I speak to founders of similar companies across the board. Our parent in Australia, the REA Group, they constantly think about it. So I think everybody's thinking about it, but there's no clear answer at this point in terms of how that change might occur. Obviously, we'd like to believe that however that change happens and whenever it happens, we are leading that change, which is why our teams are very focused on how AI could potentially be changing other industries and what might we learn from that. I think in the immediate term, there are plenty of use cases for AI. For example, we use AI in our customer contact center, which has helped us reduce costs. We do that for screening listings which come on our platform, which makes it a lot more efficient and a lot more accurate. We're looking at lots of process automation using AI, which again helps us reduce our cost. On the revenue side, we're looking at lots of predictive sort of modeling and in terms of which customers of ours are likely to renew or not, and how can we intervene in time to prevent that churn from happening. We're also looking at improving lead quality for our customers based on AI. So again, building models around lead gen. And again, relevance in terms of what listings show up for customers, etc. Again, using AI. So I think that's one area where we're very focused on. I think, again, in the immediate term, we believe that as more and more consumers search on the platform, I think personalization is very important. You've got to be very specific in serving up what the consumer needs. So again, using machine learning, etc., to understand consumer behavior and then basically offer them what sort of meets their specific needs, which I think builds loyalty for the platform, builds retention, etc. I think that's what we are looking at in the immediate term. Obviously, there are some challenges for our platform in India. We are still, while we are market leaders in terms of audience, in terms of app download share, in terms of app ratings, I think there is still room to go to become a clear number one. So that's something we are very focused on. We believe that race is going to be won on the back of providing a superior consumer experience. So we are doing everything that it takes to ensure that people coming on our website or coming on our app do get the best consumer experience, which means they're able to find a property they want very quickly. In India, where there are lots of challenges around listings quality, the verifiability of listings, listing staleness, etc., how do we ensure that our listings quality is of the highest order and stuff like that? So I think that's an area where we're working on to ensure that we provide that superlative consumer experience, which will allow us to then obviously have better conversion rates, better quality leads for our customers, which then allows us to grow the business and become the leading market player. So I think that's a big focus area for us. The other thing which we believe is that for landlords or homeowners or for consumers, home seekers, it's the entire journey of buying a home. It's searching for the home, then shortlisting the home, then moving into the home, then staying in the home, right? So it's a full journey. So how can we provide adjacent services which also provide a one-stop experience for both homeowners and home seekers on our platform? So stuff like adjacent to home buying is mortgages, helping them with moving, paying rent on our platform for tenants paying rent to the landlord and stuff like that. So again, looking at the entire journey holistically and saying that how do we engage with the homeowners and home seekers in the entire length of the journey, which again builds loyalty for the platform, because as you would recognize that we are a low frequency use case platform, right? People buy a home every 7-8 years, or people rent a home once a year or once in 2 years or whatever that might be. So it's not like a food delivery app or a ride hailing app where people might use it every day or every 2 or 3 days, right? So I think it's important that we build a use case or multiple use cases for consumers to come more often on the platform. So that's something we're again focused on. And then again, on the customer side, we want our agents and developers to build loyalty with our platform. So we again look at providing them more and more products, which allows them to grow their businesses, get a higher share of the entire transaction. So for example, we've recently launched a mortgage aggregation product where we tell our agents that, look, when you close a transaction and if your customer needs a mortgage, you can actually pass on that inquiry through us and we'll do all the work with the bank to ensure the mortgage is approved on time and you get a fee which would be higher than what you might get with the bank because we're aggregating those mortgages for the bank. So stuff like that. So we're also trying to figure out synergies between our PropTiger business and the housing.com business to again help agents grow their business a lot more with us than they otherwise would be able to do. So those are some of the areas we are looking at. But again, at a broader level where PropTech is headed, I think, as I mentioned earlier, certain areas, clearly construction technology is an area where I think lots of gains have been made, will be made, because as population growth takes place across the world and home ownership is getting more and more expensive, I think bringing in affordability is extremely important. I think there are going to be challenges around sustainability and climate. Now, no longer can you afford to buy homes in areas which might be at risk because of climate change. So I think people are going to search for homes in areas which have lower long-term risk. So I think those are things which are going to be important where people are going to search based on that, and how can you enable search accordingly is going to become important. I think fractionalization is a big area. I think especially in the emerging market context where still affordability is a challenge. People can't necessarily afford a home until you're 30, 35. So can you enable these folks by fractionalizing real estate, allow them to hold a token, which actually gives them a piece of the real estate, and they can gradually build that up over a period of time. So whenever they're ready to buy a home of their choice, they can actually sell those tokens, get some money. So they've actually taken advantage of the inflation in real estate and then buy a home of their choice, right? We think that co-living, co-working, and co-mingling co-living and co-working, again, enabled through technology, could be a big area. I think in India for title ownership, where, again, every time you buy a property, you have to go offline for sure, because you need to do a title search, you need to go to the sub-registrar's office and register your property, etc. If title moves onto the blockchain, obviously a lot of stuff can then happen digitally. And of course, with the AR, VR solutions getting more and more improved with stuff like Apple's iProvision, etc., again, shortlisting of homes and viewing homes from the comfort of your home becomes a lot more real and makes life a lot more easier. So I think with all the emerging technologies which are impacting different industries, I don't think our industry is different. And we're going to see lots and lots of exciting developments over the next few years. So what that means is for new entrepreneurs looking to get into PropTech, massive opportunity to disrupt the incumbents. What it means for incumbents like ours to be on our toes, to ensure that if change happens, we are leading the change and don't get disrupted by newcomers. So I think an exciting decade for sure lies ahead of us in the PropTech space, and folks like you who are starting up new companies with new ideas, I think have a big opportunity to build large businesses in this space.
That's actually a very good keyword. You're also mentor and strategic mentor and partner for startups. What do you do there, and also how do you support the startups there?
So look, I am a very active angel investor. Within the sector, I have limitations just given that there could be potential conflicts of interest. But outside of the space, but of course, if it's a completely different geography, different market, no conflict with my business, I do look at startups in the PropTech space. I do a lot of angel investing in other spaces as well, a lot in India, where obviously my business is and where I grew up, but also now in Southeast Asia. And part of my getting involved is not just to put in money and hope that the company does well, but also to be there for the founder or founders when they need advice or they need input. And it's not that you have to take my input or because you've taken my money, you got to listen to me. It's more like saying, hey, look, I'm a resource available to you. And of course, I'm not available all the time. I have a full-time job as well. But on the weekend or something, if you need 20 minutes of my time to get input on something you're struggling with, obviously I've been through the entire journey of multiple startups and starting it and then exiting all the way, selling it to a multinational and then continuing to work for the same company and still running it as CEO. So I think I have a lot of different experiences and valuable insights, at least I would like to believe so, which I can share with entrepreneurs, whoever is wanting to learn or wanting to seek advice. So I do that quite actively. And yeah, it's also a space where I'm learning. I've been angel investing for years now, but I learn something new every day. I've also learned that it's easy to enter into an investment, not easy to exit. So that's a personal lesson learned in angel investing as well for me. But look, I really enjoy it because it keeps me fresh. It gives me a perspective of different industries. I learn a lot from new entrepreneurs myself because they're obviously more current, more cutting edge than I am. Helps me to bring that learning which I get into my own business. So it cuts both ways, right? I can share my wisdom and what I've learned in building a company, but at the same time, I learn a lot from these entrepreneurs, which then I can bring back into my own business. So I think it's a great way of giving back to the ecosystem. It's a great way of staying current in the ecosystem, staying relevant in the ecosystem. So I really enjoy what I do in that area as well. Yeah.
Dhruv, I'm very happy for our conversation. I thank you very much for all your time. I learned a lot. You started off and talked about your trajectory with your education in the US, about then starting all your businesses, how you basically went from the back door towards real estate by a different use case because you found a very strong pain point in the society of India and really started directly by helping people and families. You also then talked about the real estate landscape at the moment, its evolution, but it also still the obstacles which are there, which are also not only in India, but everywhere in the world. And you mentioned therefore also very interesting trends which along also your vision and how you think you will succeed and stay overly competitive and maybe also fighting to become the market leader in India. And lastly, you also mentioned very nicely about giving back to people in the space, startups, young entrepreneurs, acting as a mentor, and then also obviously investing in some, but not passively, but also actively. So working with them. I really appreciate it. I really like the conversation. I'm very grateful for having you on the show. Are there any points which we haven't discussed and which you would like still to share with the audience?
No, I think, Michael, you basically covered everything. Thank you for all the insightful questions because without the prompts, it's very hard to provide the right responses. So thanks for that. Look, I think my parting comments, and I shared that a bit earlier as well, is that I think the opportunity is massive in PropTech for sure. But overall, I think we are in tech tsunami with what sort of AI has to offer. And frankly, we are still on the ground floor and the exploration stage. So there will be many multi-billion-dollar companies which will get built. Of course, there are some leaders who are already ahead, but I think there's still boatloads of opportunities. Couldn't be a more exciting time to start. So power to all the people out there, young and old, to go out and live their dream for the next decade or so.
Perfect. So thank you so much. I share with the audience your contact information so that people also know about your companies. And we stay in contact, we stay in touch, and I send the best regards to Singapore.
Thank you very much, Michael. Have a great day and look forward to being in touch. And do look me up if you're in Singapore or in India.
Absolutely, will do. Okay. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
We'll be in touch. Take care. Bye.
This video is brought to you by Holocasa. Our tool transforms independent local real estate agents to global real estate agents. Create your own profile for free and get contacted by international investors. Sign up with the link in the description.